Thank you very much. Good morning. I don't know if I can see all of you. You can see me. Okay, how I put it here. All right. Well, welcome for a new class, a monthly classes for the healthy plants, happy people for this year 2022. Today we're going to talk about the common diseases of boxwood. We thought this could be an interesting topic for all of you, the people that know me, or they have been repeating this, they are following us in this series. I'm glad you are here. I appreciate your participation. My name is Luisa Santamaria. I'm extension plant pathologist at the Oregon State University at the Norwell Willamette Research and Extension Center. And also with me is Maria Marlin, my faculty research assistant. I will let her maybe give us some things that that we need to know about the how we're going to do this class today. One of the things that we are innovating today is I want to know if all of you have your cell phones next to you. Do you have your cell phones? Can you tell us in the chat or unmute? I don't want you to call me, no. But I want you to have that ready because we are going to try to use a new system to get in the way that you can get information from us, like some resources that we have already, and also the last or final evaluations. Just with the QR code using your camera and your phone, you will have access to the document. So we want to know that works that for you. Okay, Maria, do you have something to add to comment right now?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So like Luisa said, I'm her faculty research assistant. And a couple of things, we will answer questions at the end of the presentation, but if you have any, you're welcome to put them in the chat whenever they come up, so you don't have to wait till the end to ask them. And also at the end of the presentation, we will be taking pesticide license numbers because ODA did give us 1 credit for this webinar. So we'll take those at the end as well.
And I think, Maria, can you mention about what we came with the idea of provide a certificate if the people that have attended at least how many classes?
Yes. Oh, yes. So we decided to give a certificate to people who have attended at least 4 of the webinars in this series. So we're also recording attendance.
All right, perfect. So saying everything, you don't have any question, let's go ahead since we have just an hour to present what we prepared for you today. All right. Okay, so today we're gonna talk about 4 things related with boxwood diseases. First, we're gonna I like always to summarize what the basics about diseases, just to keep in mind that. We're gonna talk about the diseases of boxwood, and what we are going to cover there is the diagnostic signs and also the symptoms. We're going to talk briefly about good management practices, and we're going to talk about effective monitoring and resources to identify the diseases. So this is what the topics for today. All right, so let's get started. Oh, you see, my animation came later. I didn't follow the animation, but that is okay. So we know plants get sick. How do they get sick? We already have talked about that. We need the susceptible host, we need the pathogen, and we need the conducive environment. Just then is when we get the disease. And to be honest, this is not always happening. So in this case, we have our host, we have the pathogen, and the conducive conditions that usually are related with temperature, relative humidity, and water, and moisture in general. So the host that we are talking today is the genus Boxus, that is part of the Boxaceae family, botanic family, that is susceptible to several diseases. And still, this genus is referred as a boxwood or box. It's one of the most popular shrubs in America and also in Europe. But in Europe, they have had a lot of problem with one of the diseases that is disappearing of not in a high demand as it's still here in America. So this Buxus species it was introduced to North America and from Europe in the 1600s. And right now there are about 97 species and more than 200 cultivars. And from these, 150, around 150 are commercially available. So there is a diversity in size, in shape, in architecture of the plant, growth rates, and hardiness. So we have a variety of this. We're going to talk about the abiotic disorders, really insects that are related with boxwood, and then at the end we will talk about all the diseases related with boxwood. So one of the main problems, abiotic problems, it's related with winter damage and sunburn. Winter damage, sometimes you see the terminal parts of the branches yellowing, but you see most of the plants with that. So you can clearly identify that is a problem caused by the winter damage or sunburn. And sometimes if you are not familiar, you can say, no, this is disease, but it's not. It's an abiotic damage of those. The other thing that you can see in boxwood plants is the yellowing or on the tops of the plants and in patches in different areas. And sometimes I have seen this in the greenhouse environment. You see the plants really close to each other. And in this case, in the lake, for example, was kind of lack of water. There was some problem in the irrigation system that some plants didn't receive any water and the other ones received too much water. But sometimes some symptoms of yellowing we can see because of bad management in the irrigation system inside production, inside of greenhouse or hoop houses. The other problem that we can see, and there is this nutrient deficiency, the borders of the leaves start to show decoloration, and that could be cause for different nutrients, lack of nutrients. So that could be some of the symptoms. And one of the things that we usually or sometimes we can see is these cultural practices, pruning. Sometimes they are pruned too much that they cannot recover after the pruning. And you can see patches that sometimes could look like it is boxwood blight maybe or something else, but it's not. Sometimes it's caused because the pruning was too deep that the plants didn't recover in some parts. And what I also, other problem that I have seen in the field, this is not common, but you can also see this like a chemical damage applied maybe for some insects or for other things that in excessive doses or not following the time when you apply, I don't know, you can kill or burn some of the plants. In this case, you can see all the plants have a pattern, similar thing, and didn't appear in time. It was one day to another. So you can also identify the problem looking for all the practices that you have done in your production area. I'm gonna let Maria talk about the insects. She likes insects. So please, Maria, can you go ahead and let me know when you have to change the slides, please?
Okay, sure. So one insect that you might see in boxwood is the boxwood leaf miner. and symptoms. Well, you can also see signs. You can actually see the little insects. But what you'll first notice is bumps on the leaves. And it's mostly going to be on the undersides of the leaves, and they're going to be orange little bumps. And what those bumps are actually larvae that are inside the leaves feeding. Next slide, please. So you're going to see these bumps, and also the leaves are just going to have this yellowish orange color overall. Again, it's mostly going to be on the underside. And the leaf miner insects themselves are very small, and they have a life cycle that it's one generation per year, and it really starts to become obvious in the spring when the larvae, they wake up from their winter nap and they start feeding again, and they pupate. And then the emerging adults actually will make themselves apparent because there's going to be these white pupal cases attached to the leaves. And that's going to be probably about mid-spring. Now, the adults, as you'll see in that picture, do not look at all like the pupae. They look like little flies, I guess you could say. And you might notice them buzzing around the boxwood. And the adults mate. This is now, we're like in mid-May, early June, and they lay eggs in the New Year's leaves. And then in the summer, the larvae hatch and start feeding throughout the summer, go to bed when it's winter, and then the life cycle continues the next year. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so another one that you might run into is a boxwood psyllid, and these are very small insects, and they're about 1/8 of an inch long, and it kind of looks like a mini cicada. Now, the young will feed on the new growth and the buds of the boxwood, and they also have one generation per year. Now, they're going to overwinter as eggs, and the eggs are laid in between the bud scales. And in the spring, they emerge, and they're going to start feeding on the young leaves. And the picture is pretty similar to what you might see. They're going to be some white fuzz, and it's sort of a secretion from the insect. So you might notice that on the boxwood. Let's see, next slide, please. So if you see this, it's mostly aesthetic problems. You know, you're not going to get, unless there's a widespread infestation, you're not going to get death of the plant. However, if there are a lot, you might get some defoliation occurring. So it's just something to watch out for. Okay, next slide, please. The boxwood mites, yes. So if you're scouting and you notice some very interesting patterns on your leaves of the boxwood, you could have a boxwood mite problem. And hopefully you can see on this picture, they're gonna just sort of be mottled. And it looks like just little dots all over the leaves of the boxwood. And that's caused by the feeding of the mites. So that's another insect that you would have to watch out for.
Okay.
Thank you. I think that's everything.
All right, perfect, Maria. I would like to ask to the people here, the insects from 1 to 5, being 5 the really high problem. What would you consider the insects problem in your boxwood production? Someone want to answer? Is really a problem or something you can handle without any problem? So I would like to know, just curious about the insects in boxwood.
Got a 1 in the chat.
Can you check that, please?
Yeah, a 1.
So it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
The insects, yeah, I have seen mite problems, but it's not too bad what I have seen. But you know, you are there most of the time. I'm just visiting sometimes, and I see mites. That is a problem. Yes. All right. Yes, I have seen mites too. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's continue now. I'm going to talk about the diseases in boxwood. We know one of the most important right now, it's just paying attention, is this boxwood blight that is causing special consideration. And even there is a national group that got a SCRI grant to study all the different aspects of boxwood blight. But additional to boxwood blight, there are another problems that maybe they're not the big impact as boxwood blight in boxwood production. So I know all of you are familiar with these, like Volutella blight, Phytophthora, boxwood dieback, and boxwood blight. So I'm going to follow in this order, talking about each one. So let's go to the Volutella canker on leaves and stems. This is caused by the fungus that is called Volutella boxi. One of the main symptoms is this decoloration and flags in the plant, but mainly if we see closer, we can see in some point these salmon or I don't know, pinky color spore groups of spores. And usually this pathogen is an opportunistic one. When the plant is sick or weak, they will attack immediately. So whenever you see a plant that has Phytophthora, usually will have Volutella too. So that is the one that kind of we look for when we see some plant that could have Phytophthora, usually also has Volutella. This is another picture of this Volutella disease. This is a salmon pink color fruiting bodies. That is kind of all leaves, I could say, and a kind of final stage of infection in these Volutella, in these boxwood leaves. Phytophthora root rot, usually you can see it where boxwood plants are planted in lower areas where there are more water or some standing water presence. That is when you will see these kind of symptoms. One of the things you see is this flagging on the plants, and it's clear to differentiate that they're coming from one side. So roots are starting to get rotten, so that is the part of the plant that start to keep dying. So this is kind of, to me, easy to recognize, identify the problems, 1, 2, 3 plants, and it's not all of them, right? The other characteristic is the leaves don't fall, so they are persistent in the plant. Talking about Phytophthora, I want to remind you that we will have next month a class about root rot diseases in ornamentals. We will talk about all the pathogens that could cause these root rots in some ornamentals. So please keep that in mind and keep in your calendar. Just once a month that we are talking with you. I would like to take this like a, I would love to be this more like a conversation, but it's a way to share some of this information with all of you. The other disease that is in the list for boxwood is the boxwood dieback. Actually, this is a disease that confirmed not long time ago, and you can have more detail or more information about this is in the North Central IPM Center. So they identify Colectotrichum theobromnicola as are related with these kind of symptoms. So what characterizes the dead branches with yellow leaves, the leaves don't fall, and the crown and roots appear normal. So Phytophthora is not here considered, but it's just some of the leaves cause these yellowing leaves dying. And the other thing is in the stems, just scratching the stem, you can see the bark, below the bark, it's getting decolorated like this in the picture here. So it is different at the other symptoms we're going to see in the next disease, that is the boxwood blight. So we're going to keep a little more detail about the boxwood blight. So the pathogen now has the name of, it's a long name, Calonectria pseudonaviculata. This disease was initially found in Europe, and it's found everywhere now, from landscapes. And this is actually some pictures from England in the left, in the right, and the to right is here in the Oregon. Um, so also this disease has reached all American botanical gardens like Longwood Gardens in Delaware, or you can see the damage for the disease in boxwood plants that, well, they were really concerned because those were cultivars that have been there for more than 2 decades and then get infected. But also our concern here is the commercial nurseries. And the thing that concern us the most is that since Oregon has a really high production of boxwood and send plants to other states, so we need to be really careful or learn more about this disease. Yeah, there is a publication in some place that say that Oregon sent infected plants to other state in the East Coast. So, and they kind of generalize Oregon, even was one nursery, or maybe I don't know what was the real problem, but that is recorded in some publications. So we cannot delete that information. And we need to be careful about understanding the biology of this pathogen. So far, since in the States, this was identified in 2011, but in Connecticut and North Carolina, and then in Oregon. So we were the first states where this disease was identified. And now in 2021, there was a updated publication that more than 30 states have been reported the presence of boxwood blight. Okay, as I said, this pathogen could damage mainly the aerial part of the plant. So when the plants are taken out because of the disease, identify the disease, the radical system is completely healthy. It doesn't cause any damage to the root system. That is interesting. And then some of the symptoms, the initial symptoms that you can see, it is appear in the like a brown, light brown lesions on the leaves. They are kind of dark spots, and these lesions can start to keep growing, and to the point that could cover all the leaves, or most of them stay concentric, and it's one of the main characteristics or symptoms to be identified. The other important characteristic is the defoliation. We can see excessive loss of leaves. When you see around the plant a lot of leaves, that's a bad symptom. It is like a plants are really infected with the pathogen, and that is just, we haven't, if we see this and we go close to the plant, we definitely see the present leaf spots, and also we see some other features that will tell us that is the boxwood blight is present. This is the other thing that I was thinking about, the black lesions on the stems of the plants with angular diamond shape. This is using our imagination, right? But no, usually you can differentiate that. It's different when I talk about the other disease that you have to scratch a little bit and you can see that black in the stem, but this is like lesions that you have there. And if you, as I said, they could have this shape, I'm sorry, diamond shapes on the lesions on the stems. And also we can see when the damage has been advanced in the plants, we can see some cankers also, kind of cracks on the stems, and that will be other symptom of the disease. The black lesions could be seen. This is some sample that I collect someday and took this. You can find in the stems on the branches from the bottom to the tip. So these it could be, sometimes it's good to check the bottom branches, going up to the top branches, and you will find them in any place of the plant, really. But it's something that clearly help us to identify the problem. So I'm talking about these advanced symptoms. That's how the plants could look for when the plants are really get infected. This picture is from a home that we went to visit maybe 6 years ago, and it was the family was devastated because they have been having boxwood for more than 25 years, and now the plants were completely like that. And it was so hard to do any recommendation at this point. And I just asked the person that was taking care of this landscape, and he said that he started to see the symptoms like 3 years before, and it has been progressive, but they didn't do anything. And I asked, well, there was only one person taking care of that. The only problem, you know what it was? I asked him, do you clean your tools? And he said, no, I have never cleaned my tools. Okay, thank you. Thank you. We don't want to know anything else. But yeah, so I was moved by the person that was taking care of that without knowing what was going on, right? But so plants, like I said, in the advanced stages, they look like wilted or smoky or burned. So these are several pictures that showing these advanced symptoms of boxwood blight. Here, these are heavily infected plants that lose almost all their leaves. Sometimes, and I have heard that plants try to recover, but go back to the original stage is going to be hard, and if they don't have enough leaves, it's going to be hard to the plants to recover. So they stay weak, and then definitely at the end they die. So, and one of the interesting things here is that plants that get infected, it could be infected at any stage. So it first I have seen plants infected at the propagation stage. Well, what would be the reason, right? It is the original material is already contaminated. So here's the important part that we need to pay attention, that to me, one of the important things would be to collect propagation material from maybe stock plants, mother plants that we know that are healthy. That would be one thing. But sometimes the practices, you can tell me I'm wrong, is just to go to collect the little pieces after they are pruning the boxwood plants. That would be the material to originate new plants. That is what I have here, not seen, but I hear that is the common practices. But that's the reason then you have contamination and high rates of infection in some places because of that. But as I said, they can get infected at any stage too, like and all mature plants, maybe more than 3 or 4 years. And that is sad and problem, and you have an spread in all your plants. So the only recommendation at that time will be remove of the plants, and that would be a loss for the nursery. Okay, so let's talk about the cultivars. So we talked that at least there are more than 148 cultivars that are used commercially. Among these cultivars, after we had the problem in 2012, North Carolina State University started to do some tests about resistance and susceptibility. And they did a nice test, and they identified that Buxus Semper Virens American cultivar was one of the most susceptible cultivars, and identified these winter gem Buxus microphylla as the most resistant. So here's something that maybe all of you have reviewed at some point about this evaluation that was done. But one of the things I have found is these now there are other places that are doing this study, evaluated resistance and susceptibility, because the pathogen has their way to to behave, let's say, according to the environmental conditions, the right temperature, right humidity to survive. And sometimes I have here the cultivars that are here, let's say in the west area region, they are they don't have any symptoms. When they are moved to the East Coast, there are different conditions. If they move some of the pathogen in some of the plants, they can start to show symptoms. So that is something of the tricky part of the things we want to prevent, just knowing more about the behavior of the pathogen. They have been identified other hosts, like one of them is Pachysandra. In 2016, they identified some lesions on the plants, and actually they were close to boxwood blight. So after they moved these plants to the lab, having these kind of lesions, they isolate the pathogen that is the same for the boxwood blight. So Pachysandra is considered like another host for the boxwood blight. And also we have the Sarcococca, that is part of the same family, is this botanical family, the Buxaceae. And it has several species. So it is considered, and I think they have it found the same pathogen in some of these, but in this case, I'm thinking that they will have been inoculated, just considering and in the lab conditions. I'm not sure they have found directly Sarcococca, but Pachysandra, yes, they have been found. And even I found in Pachysandra in the field. So it is real. Okay, so one of the most important things considering the pathogens are their structures. What do we have? So mycelium, that cottony growth that sometimes we can even see in the plants out in the field, it's the vegetative growing of the fungus. Then we have the spores, well, here's the conidiophore where it support all the spores, and that are the main source of infection. And then there are these structures called microesclerotia that are survival structures. They can stay in the tissue for a long time. So here's what we can see. This white, let me see if I have animation here. Yes, these are the spores, right, in groups of sporangiophores that we call anyway. These produce thousands to millions of spores, and the one that they're kind of white. And the main thing is they are really sticky. So this is how you can see under an electronic microscope. So they can easily attach to your clothes, to shoes, to tools, and that is the way that it's easy to disperse, to move, or to spread around other plants. So this is another picture how it looks, this group of spores. And then let's see closer these microsclerotia that are the scary ones, since they are the ones that survive the longer. And there have been studies in the laboratory. Then there's some student maybe counting the microsclerotia, and they have found more than 3,600 microsclerotia per leaf. So that is a lot. So if you think about it, and if you think one leaf could have this number of microsclerotia in the ground, surviving until they have the right host. So that it is something we need to be worried and concerned about cleaning and removing as much as we can any potential tissue that is contaminated. As I said, there have been many people are really interested how to control or manage these structures, especially these microsclerosia. So this is a result from a study done that was done in 2016. This person is still doing some research, but just in vitro, not in the real life, in real conditions, let's say that. So, but just to mention about, they are trying to use different sanitizers that could be available for the nursery industry to clean tools or to disinfect some materials um, that you use maybe for propagation, I don't know. But one of the most effective, if you can see this graphic, is ethanol. But you know, ethanol are in contact, but it has to have at least 5 minutes in contact to be efficient, so to kill or destroy the microsclerosia. It seems that 5 minutes for ethanol was okay. And the other disinfectant that has been tested in this specific case was xylitol, that at least it needs 15 minutes in contact to be effective against these microsclerosia. But as I said, it is just experimental and it's still not completely finished. I guess they are still doing testing. And I think this was specific for tools using propagation or tools that are used for pruning. All right. Now we have something to consider: how the disease is spread. I have already mentioned some of those, and but the short distance, how we can get contaminated is the rain, irrigation, wind, contaminated plant debris, contaminated tools, workers, so we mentioned that, and also some animals, pets or insects or birds can move around the spores. We consider long distance to the movement that is just the plants from one place to another. So that is the only way that for long distance, when we move plants to one nursery to another county, maybe another state. So that is considered long distance spread of the disease. The disease could be spread. So now let's talk about the optimal conditions of infection for infection. So the best temperature to grow for these pathogens, so it is 77 Fahrenheit or 25 centigrades, but it could grow between 5 to 30 centigrades, you know? So it has a range of temperature that is not bad, 5 to 30, right? Being the optimal 25. But it also has been some studies that have identified that high temperatures like 33 centigrades for 7 days will destroy completely the pathogens. But the infections occur really fast under hot and humid conditions. So at least 65 relative humidity, and as I said, 18 to 25 will be kind of the range for optimal conditions for infections. So knowing that, we know how we can maybe try to handle the irrigation, or mainly the irrigation system if the plants are outside. Okay, let's talk about the best management practices now. And one of the main things, to be honest, is how to train. We need to train people that are helping us to, to identify problems outside the field. If we train them, we can have more eyes outside looking for us, helping us to identify symptoms and signs. And definitely early recognition of the disease through scouting will help us to be alert to what is going on. It's better to identify the plants that are sick sooner than later when it's going to be hard to manage the problem. And the other aspect is to understand the biology of the pathogen, like we have mentioned, all the structures that has, how the pathogen is spread, why is the importance of cleaning and sanitation, and not only the areas we're working on, and also the personal, the people that are working around the plants. The second part of the management practices, so education and training will be the first, but the others, the second will be the cultural practices in the nursery. So if we propagate the plants, I would like to that you consider to have stock plants. That would be nice. That would be safe for you to, you know where are you collecting the material to propagate the plants, and yes, that will be really important. If not, if you are not propagating, you're getting plants from other place, it will be good to know where they come in and be sure they, you know, to to test them or disinfect the cuttings before you plant it, just in case. In the process of transportation, temperature change, and some spores could start to germinate if they are getting infected or not. Um, it's important to, it's a recommendation. We always say that try to use the most resistant cultivars. I know there is a new resistant cultivar that some nurses are trying to get to propagate. That is a good thing. But the problem is that the diversity of the cultivars is what is attracted for more of the customers, right? It would be nice to have in all the the different options that people like of cultivars. But I know there is just one right now that is selling, and it is considered resistant for boxwood, right? Mm, if you receive plants from other places as any other disease, keep them in quarantine, just keep them at least 4 weeks separated from the other plants before you mix with the other plants in your nursery. Try not to apply any fungicide because we want to see if they develop some disease symptoms, or insects, or any other problem. So it's always good to keep that in mind, to quarantine plants before you mix with your plants. And what emphasize in order to prevent these boxwood diseases, you use containers, reuse containers, try to do the best in the process of cleaning and sanitation. Sanitize the floors after trimming or pruning plants. That is hard. I don't know what would be the conditions of each nursery, but you need to consider that, how to do the best job cleaning and removing whatever tissue is getting in the ground. So we don't want that to be moved with the wind or rain to other plants. In some places, it is important to have the people that do scouting consider to have special clothes and shoes or some kind of protection. So after they finish the scouting, so they can remove and they won't move the disease to any other place. Sanitation of tools and work equipment, that would be nice and important. And I know these work equipment, like big equipment, sometimes could be shared from one place to another, but I will think that will be important to add in your protocols to clean them, sanitize, or remove the soil that are coming from one place to another. And I know that is not kind of a common practice sometimes, but it could be important. And you will notice the difference, not just in one disease, but in general. You will improve your plant health in general, moving soil from one place to another through the equipment. Okay, so kind of summarizing here, what are the best practices to prevent boxwood blight? First, well, if you have infected material, what the main suggestions are, hopefully you don't have much, but if you have a lot of plants infected, the general recommendation is like, you can do two things. You can burn them, or you can put in plastic bags and send to the landfill. I have seen some places they trying to remove the container and just you know, bury the plant material, and that's what they do. And then the containers are sent to the landfill. Also, just, avoiding workers to visit the plants where they are wet, because with the water, the spores will really easily, and then will be, sticky in the clothes. And yeah, we will never recommend to do monitoring when the plants are wet. And the other aspect is irrigation. I know we do overhead irrigation in most of these plants, but well, just try to do it in a moment that will reduce in some way the lip wetness, so we can avoid to kind of limit the conditions, the conducive conditions for boxwood to infect the plants. Right. So, and this graphic here that was presented in one of the productions, so I said publications from the Oregon Association of Nurses, that I like this graphic. That's something we need to consider always. It's the critical control points. That means where we could be the source of a infection, of what could be the source in our place where we can get pathogens to our plants. So at the right, we have all the potential area where we can get infected plants, from incoming plants, from protein media, from water, from pots that haven't been cleaned and sanitized correctly, or from the ground. There are several soil-borne pathogens that are there. If we don't consider that, well, we can have the risk to move to our production system, from the liners, pots, or container yards and fields. So, and then eventually all these plants will go for shipping. So we need to consider our risk, where is the high, what is our weakness area, and emphasize there to try to prevent the introduction of new pathogens. Just and scouting, that would be the nice and important thing to do. Why is important? And sometimes it is considering this practice like it's okay to check once a month, once a week, I don't know. That depends. But scouting is, to me, one of the most easy important practices, because we can avoid the spread of the pathogen in the beginning, at the beginning of the problem, just removing plants with the infected plants or with disease, or parts that are infected. So at the end, we will have several benefits, right? If we identify the problem in the beginning stages. We will reduce the crop loss, chemical applications, and especially we will prevent economic losses for infected plants, and we have to destroy all of them. So scouting is important, and also if we do that right or correctly, if we take additional to that, we collect data, like where is the problem located, so we can rotate cultivars. So we won't put in that place in maybe 4 or 5 years boxwood again, because we had the problem there, and we need to rotate another crop that is not susceptible for boxwood blight, right? So things like that, or when the problem happened, or what were the conditions. So some additional data that we can include during the scouting will be really helpful for future planning or avoiding other disease problems. And here's our list that we developed. We just put together important information about a boxwood blight. So this is the moment when we would like you to use your cell phone. This is the first time we want you to use your cell phone. Can you try it, please? Just with your phone, with your camera, and try to see if you can just focus on the QR and to see if you get this link, the document, and you can open in your phone maybe. Could you check that for us, if that works? Is that
Okay, someone
Maria?
in the chat, Lauren said that it worked. Thank you,
Oh,
Lauren.
okay. Beautiful. Very good. Okay, do you need more time or we can go ahead? Did everybody get it? All right, let's continue then.
Yeah.
Well, we hope everybody got it, but if not, let us know. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ricardo. All right, let's continue then. Got it. Perfect. So it's working. We love that. We love this system. It's easy for us and easy for you. I love it. Mhm. All right, let's continue. Okay. Um, so I start to develop some material trying to help, to educate workers, and I did it trying to do in a simple way, the basic information. I know everybody's busy, and one of the things that this is through the OSU extension catalog. So the OSU has a extension catalog of publications, um, and we have those in that book about Boxwood. Like was a fact sheet. It was in English and in Spanish, but one of the ones that I really like and is I think is underused, completely underused, is this. You can see here is a mobile friendly. A PDF. So you can download in the PDF, even you don't have connection, you can have the pictures that will help you. Okay, you can have the phone in the field and you can check the plan. Oh yeah, this is similar, they look similar. So that was my thinking back in 2016. But after that, I haven't promoted at all this material and it still is there and available, is free, you can get it. Be nice to know you're using that. Also, at that time, I create this poster. It was bilingual poster, so it has a color in English is blue, in yellow it was orange was in Spanish. So this is you can print it if you want. It's free too. It's a PDF, but also you can order posters from EC. And I remember they were trying to print in a material that was water resistant, so you can put in any place, even outside. But I don't know at the end if this it is helpful or not, since I never follow up after I produce this. Now I'm trying to promote the material again to see if it's helpful for you. And I don't want to forget about this, that is available for everybody. This is the Pacific Northwest Plant Disease Management Handbook that is available online. And you can find any disease that related with and all the management reference, and also there is a list of the chemicals that can be used. This handbook I know is updated every year, so all the chemicals have labeled for the Western region, so that is I found valuable for all the growers. And this is another interesting link. I told you about this group that are studying boxwood blight, and then is related with the Horticultural Research Institute. In this link, you can find a gallery of pictures about boxwood blight, sarcococca, and what is the other, Pachysandra. And also there are videos for scouting, so you can show your workers. It is also in English and Spanish. So it is how you have to go out in the field and look for the disease in different, explaining in different steps what are the most important things to do. I think I have mentioned this today, but the video could be helpful too. And there was a publication in 2020 about a diagnostic guide for boxwood blight. And this is super cool because the pictures are really nice and good for this. And also there is a new that was published last year, a diagnostic guide for Bolutella. The pictures are amazing. And I think all those links are in the resource list that we provide you.